Imagine you are waking up in the year 1349. For months, your world has been a cacophony of screams, the constant, rhythmic ringing of funeral bells, and the heavy thud of bodies being dropped into wooden carts. You have lived every hour expecting the black swellings, the buboes, to appear on your own skin. You have watched your family vanish. You have watched your village turn into a cemetery. But this morning, something is wrong. It is too quiet. You walk to your window and look out at the dirt track that serves as your village's main street. The death carts are not moving. The bells have stopped. You realize, with a chill down your spine, that the plague hasn't just stopped. It has run out of victims. What happens to a world where 50% of the population disappears in a single season? How do you eat? How do you pray? How do you even know what time it is when the bell ringers are all dead? How do you function when the very fabric of human civilization has been shredded? Today, we are going through the brutal, hour-by-hour, day-by-day timeline of the aftermath. We are moving past the sickness and into the survival. This is the first 100 days of a new world. This is the day after the Black Death. Hour 1. The first morning. The sun rises over a Europe that is physically broken. On this first day, the primary emotion isn't relief. It's a paralyzing, hollow terror. You are a survivor, but you are a ghost in a ghost town. In the great cities, London, Paris, Florence, the streets are no longer paved with stone, but with a thick gray slurry of ash, waste, and the uncollected dead. On this first morning, the social contract simply ceases to exist. There is no law. There are no courts. The local magistrate is likely dead. The king has fled to a rural estate. You step outside and the smell hits you, a sweet, cloying rot that clings to your clothes and skin. Hour 6. The crisis of the dead. By noon on the first day, the most urgent task in human history begins: purification. If these bodies aren't moved immediately, the survivors will succumb to secondary infections. You see the remaining villagers emerging like shadows. There are no ceremonies today. No priests to read the last rites. The clergy died at a rate of 60% because they stayed to comfort the sick. You see neighbors dragging sleds toward the plague pits. These were massive, deep trenches, often 50 feet long, where bodies were layered like lasagna, with thin sheets of lime and dirt between them. On this first day, humanity is reduced to the status of a cleanup crew. There is no grieving. There is only the mechanical, exhausting labor of moving the past into the ground. Day 3. The supply chain snaps. By the third day, a new killer arrives: hunger. Medieval society was an intricate, delicate machine. The peasant grew the wheat, the miller ground the flour, and the baker made the bread. This was the great chain of being. But what happens when the links are missing? You go to the village mill. The wheel is turning, driven by the river, but there is no one there to feed the grain. The stone is grinding against stone, creating sparks and the smell of burning rock. You go to the bakery. The ovens are cold. The supply chain hasn't just slowed, it has shattered. On day 3, you realize that the gold coins in the pockets of the dead are worthless if there is no bread to buy. We see the first records of the scavenge. Survivors break into the manor houses of the nobility. They aren't looking for jewelry. They are looking for salted ham, dried peas, and ale. This is the moment the hierarchy begins to fail. When a hungry peasant with a pitchfork realizes the Lord's pantry is full, the divine right of kings starts to look very fragile. Day 7. The Animal Apocalypse. 1 week in. The human noise has faded, replaced by the sound of a world returning to the wild. This is the week of the Great Livestock Crisis. In the 14th century, animals were the engine of life. But now, thousands of cows wander aimlessly into the forests. Their udders are painfully distended, leaking milk into the mud because no one is there to relieve them. Sheep are being slaughtered by wolves that have grown bold enough to enter village squares in broad daylight. The sound of thousands of dying, neglected animals creates a surreal, nightmarish soundscape. This is a pivotal moment in history, the transition of land. Fields that were meticulously groomed for centuries are suddenly left to the weeds. This 7th day marks the beginning of a massive ecological shift. The brown world of agriculture is being swallowed by the green world of the wilderness. Day 14. The Power Vacuum. 2 weeks have passed. The immediate panic has settled into a cold, hard reality. You have survived, and you are starting to look at your hands. You realize that you are one of the few people left who knows how to plow a field, how to fix a roof, or how to forge a horseshoe. On day 14, we see the first recorded instances of what historians call labor leverage. Imagine a lord who survived in his castle. He looks out at his vast estates. The harvest is coming due, but he has no serfs. He calls for you. He demands you work for the same pennies you earned before the plague. And for the first time in your life, you say no. This was the birth of the strike. The lords were horrified. In England, they tried to pass laws like the Ordinance of Laborers, making it a crime to ask for higher pay. But you can't jail a man for wanting more money when there are no guards left to lock the cell door. This 2-week mark is when the feudal system, the iron cage of Europe, began to rust and snap. The survivors were no longer property. They were a rare and valuable commodity. Day 30. The Ghost Towns. 1 month. This is the month of the Great Migration. You look at your village. Your wife is gone. Your children are in the pit. Every corner of your hut is a memory of a life that no longer exists. Why stay? Across Europe, over 3,000 villages in England alone are simply erased. People pack their few belongings into a sack and start walking. They head toward the cities, London, Bristol, York, hoping that in the chaos they can find a new life. This migration creates ghost towns that will stay abandoned for the next 600 years. If you go to the English countryside today, you can still see the humps in the grass where these houses once stood. On day 30, the map of the world was being rewritten by the feet of the desperate. Day 60. The Psychological Break. 2 months in, the physical world is stabilizing, but the mental world is collapsing. This is the time of the flagellants. Groups of men and women, hundreds strong, wander from town to town. They wear hoods. They carry whips tipped with iron spikes. They believe the plague was a punishment from God, and the only way to stop it from returning is to punish themselves. They stand in the town squares and whip their own backs until the stones are red. They sing haunting, dirge-like hymns. The survivors watch them in a trance. The church, the absolute authority of the Middle Ages, is powerless to stop them. The priests died at a higher rate than the peasants because they were exposed to the sick. On day 60, the crisis of faith begins. People start to ask, if the church couldn't save us, who can? Day 90, the golden age of the survivor. 3 months have passed. A strange, macabre transformation has occurred. Because so many people died, there is suddenly an abundance of everything. The survivors are moving into the houses of the dead nobility. They are eating off silver plates. They are wearing fur-lined cloaks and silk tunics that they could never have dreamed of owning 90 days ago. This is a period of conspicuous consumption. There is a feeling of eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. The economy is upside down. There is so much coin and so few people that inflation skyrockets, but so do wages. The day after has become a new year. The diet of the average peasant changes overnight. Instead of gray pottage and coarse bread, they are eating fresh meat, fish, and fine wheat. This is the first time in human history that the working class has a disposable income. Day 100, the rebirth. 100 days. It has been a season of death, a season of silence, and a season of radical change. As the sun rises on this 100th day, the world is fundamentally different than it was before the first flea bite. The chains of serfdom have been broken. The monopoly of the church on truth has been shaken. The value of an individual human life has, out of sheer necessity, started to rise. We see the first sparks of the Renaissance. We see the first steps toward modern medicine, as people realize that bad air and divine anger don't explain why some lived and others died. The Black Death was an ending, yes. It was a tragedy beyond comprehension. But the day after was the beginning of the modern world. It was the moment humanity was forced to grow up, to innovate, and to rebuild a world that was fairer than the one that burned. History is not just a record of how we fall. It is a record of how we stand back up on the morning after the nightmare ends. You are a survivor. The fields are waiting. The world is yours. Thanks for watching. If this journey through the timeline of the aftermath moved you, please hit the like button. It helps us keep telling these stories of the human spirit. And subscribe to join us as we explore the day after for the greatest turning points in history. What should we cover next? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, keep looking back so we can move forward.
The harvest celebration starts early today. Look at them run! Wait for me.